All right, so today we're going to play a little review game over 5.1 through 5.4. This should help you for your test tomorrow. Okay, how many of you did it by mental math? All right, I saw quite a few of you. Those were the ones who got it the fastest, because mental math is the fastest way. Remember, we are trying to solve for y. So I've got to figure out how to get from y. I know this 36, so I've got to figure out how to get from a 36 to a y. I can do that by figuring out how to get from a 54 to a 9. What's the missing link?
6.
What about 6? I am dividing by 6 because this one right here was bigger and it went to something smaller. I have to divide by 6 on both the top and the bottom. So guys, what's 36 divided by 6? 6. So y equals 6, and the way that we just did it was mental math. How many of you did cross products? Did you still get y equals 6?
Yes.
All right, so it shouldn't matter which method you use. Did anyone do multiplication? All right, very good. Remember, that's when you're trying to get the y by itself, so you multiply by 9 on both sides. All right, so the correct answer was y equals 6, and once again, you could choose whichever method you wanted. So on your quiz, I didn't put any vocab words, but on your test tomorrow, there will be a section with vocab words. This one is asking you, what is a comparison of two quantities called? I think we only had 4 people out of our whole class that got this right. A comparison of two quantities is called a ratio. All right, the next vocab word, what is a ratio of two quantities using different units called? This is called a rate. All right, listen, a lot of you guys are showing me you need to study the vocab section in your notes tonight. Let's look at the next one. Solve the proportion and tell me which method you used. All right, so for this one, you really cannot use mental math because the x has something with it, x plus 2. So what do you think the best method is going to be? I think cross products will be the best also. So I'm going to go ahead and circle this and then circle this one. Do I want my x to be on the left side or the right side? We always want it to be on the left side of our problem. So here's the deal. I've got x plus 2. I need to multiply that whole thing by a 4. How do you think I can keep that whole thing together? With some parentheses, all right? So I'm going to put the parentheses around that, and I have to multiply that by the number what? 4. We typically will put that number in front, okay? On the right side, what should I do?
10 times 2.
10 times 2. Guys, what is it called when there's a number tucked on the outside that needs to get into everything on the inside of the parentheses? Distributive properties. So I've got to multiply the 4 by the x and by the 2. Guys, what is 4 times x? 4x. Plus, what's 4 times 2? 8. Equals, Hayden, what's 10 times 2? 20. Now we've got a two-step problem. There is best friends here, so we're going to keep the 4 and the x together because the 4 is attached to the x. If your board doesn't look like mine, erase what you've got so far and do it with me, please. Now, what should I do, Ava? You are correct. We're going to subtract by 8 on both sides. Now on the left, I'm left with 4x equals 12. Once again, we still want x by itself. Talila, how do I get it by itself? Very good. Divided by 4, giving me the answer of x equals 3. What method did we just use? Cross products. On the quiz, a lot of people just put cross. That is not an example of a method. It's called cross products. And that is what we used for number 4. Number 5 says to tell whether the quantities are proportional by finding the value of the ratio. In order to find the value, remember we take the top number and divide it by the bottom number. What do we get for that first one? 9 miles to every gallon. And the next one, top number divided by the bottom number, what do we get? 9 also. How about 72 divided by 12? 6. And finally, 22.5 divided by 4.5 is? Are those proportional? No, they would only be proportional if the value of the ratio was the same all the way across the table. All right, so once again, vocab is going to be real important on the test tomorrow. What compares a quantity to 1 unit of another quantity? One thing about this one is it does give you a clue. It says you're comparing it to 1 unit. So look for that word. And also we talked about when we want a denominator of 1. Okay, so for something to say like 4 miles to 1 gallon, this would be called a unit rate. All right, if you're struggling with these, once again, please make sure you're studying the vocab section tonight. This asks us to tell whether or not the rates are equivalent. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up a proportion. Remember, 2 fractions or ratios that equal each other. 60 feet for every 2.5 minutes equals 85 feet for every 3.4 minutes. How many of you set it up the same way? Okay, so I'm going to choose to do it the cross products way. On the left side, we're going to do 60 times 3.4. On the right side, 2.5 times 85. Now listen, on your quiz, a lot of times people did not copy the original problem correctly, and that's how come they got it wrong. So always be looking for those things, double checking, making sure you're writing the original problem correct. On the left side, what does that equal? 204. On the right side? 212.5. Do those equal each other? No, they do not. Okay, so they are not equivalent. For the next problem, you're going to be finding the unit rate of 1/2 mile for a 1/16 of a gallon. Okay, so one thing that's really important about finding unit rate is by putting the units attached. A lot of people are forgetting the units. The original problem tells us miles per gallon, so your answer needs to come out miles per gallon. All right, so what we do is we take the first one, we divide it by the second one. So we're doing 1/2 divided by 1/16. What do I do next?
KFC.
KFC. Keep the first one, flip the second one, change the operation. Einar, can I cross reduce anything? Which ones? And what do they become? 1 and 8. Very good. When you multiply it out, guys, you see that you've got 8. Once again, go back to the original problem. It said miles per gallon. So we've got 8 miles per 1 gallon. For this one, we're using the table below to write the ratio. Okay, we're using the table below to write the ratio, find the value of the ratio, and then interpret what the ratio means in a complete sentence. Right now, guys, just help me out. What was the ratio that you wrote down?
1/2 to 2.
Okay, 1/2 to 2. Now what I want you to do, use that information and find me the value of the ratio and interpret what the value of that ratio means. Okay, guys, in order to find the value of the ratio, remember you have to take the first one and do what to the second one? Divide it, okay? So yes, you're right. We're going to keep the first one, flip the second one, and change the operation. When you multiply that out, what's the value of the ratio? 1/4. Now we want to interpret it. Remember, you're always going to start off by saying the amount of, and guys, what's the first thing in our original problem? Salt. So that's going to be the amount of salt is, now take your value of your ratio. What's the value of our ratio? 1/4. Now what? The amount of flour. Once again, looking up at the top, the second part of our original problem. Everybody read me the interpretation that I wrote. Go ahead. The amount of salt is 1/4 the amount of flour. Find the missing values in the ratio table and then write the equivalent ratios. Remember, whenever we're working from the top to the bottom, what do I need to do? Divide, okay, and from the bottom to the top? Multiply. So let's focus on the very first one. I'm going from the top to the bottom, so what do I have to do? Divide. We're going to do 4 divided by 1/2. Okay, so once again, we'll do KFC, 4 times 2/1. What do you get for the value of your ratio? 8. How many of you guys were able to get 8? Okay, so now that we got that for the first one, we can stick that all the way across. Next up, you can see I've got 1/4 on the bottom. So I'm working from the bottom to the top. What should I do? Multiply. That's where some people forgot. So we're going to multiply 1/4 times 8. Can I cross reduce anything?
Yeah, you're 4, you're 8.
Your 4 and 8 become
1 and 2.
1 and 2, so my answer is
2.
2. I'll put that up at the top. 2 cups of milk for 1/4 cups of flour. Next one. I give it to you on the top, a 6, but now I need to know how much flour on the bottom. How do I get from the top to the bottom? You're going to divide, okay? You could just write 6 over 8, or some people like to do 6 over 1 divided by 8 over 1. Once again, you're still going to be keeping the first one, flipping the second one, changing the operation. You can cross-reduce these to a 3 and a 4. If I have 6 cups of milk, how much flour do I have? 3/4. So that goes up there at the top. Now remember, when you're writing equivalent ratios, we no longer need the value of the ratio. That was just the missing link to help us to get the milk in cups or the flour in cups. So instead now you will see, I'll go ahead and I will just help you to see we don't need the value right now. Instead, we are comparing the top number, the 4, to the bottom number, the 1/2, okay? So 4 cups of milk to a 1/2 cup of flour. What's the next 2 that I'm comparing? 2 to 1/4. Listen, some people did 1/4 to 2. Order matters. Always start with the top one in your table and then compare it to the bottom one. And the final one, what will I write? 6 to 3/4. And those are my equivalent ratios. Tell whether the ratios form a proportion using cross products. So specifically, we're going to use cross products for this one. We've got 4 to 9 and 2 to 3. Remember with cross products, you're going to circle them diagonally. Okay, so on the left side, we've got 4 times 3. On the right side, 9 times 2. Now remember, order doesn't matter. You could put either one on either side. Is this true? 12 equals 18. No, that's not true. So an answer here, no, they do not form a proportion. Okay, for this one, we want to make a proportion. So we know 16 ounces is how much money?
$3.20.
$3.20. Now for the next one, we want to make sure we've got ounces on the top also, 25 ounces. And we're trying to find the cost. We don't know it, so we're going to give it an X, okay? Instead, now we're going to circle. How many of you did cross products? Quite a few of you, okay? So we've got 16x equals 320 times what? 25 ounces. When you do that, what do you get on the right side? 80. How do I get that x by itself?
Divide by 16.
Divide by 16, and we find out x equals what? $5. So when it asks you, what's the cost? The cost is $5. Okay, so remember guys, review this and study it for your test tomorrow.